too hard?
I'm gonna push through.
What if it's too long?
I'm gonna push through.
What if it's too tough?
I'm gonna push through.
What if you're just too young?
That's not true.
What if you're not good enough?
That's not true.
Why? Because
I can do everything I put my mind to.
I believe in you.
Chin up
Believe in yourself.
and high.
Tell me why.
We push through anything we put our mind to.
Good morning, grade 5 students. Welcome back to another teaching and learning exercise. This morning, we will be looking on the subject social studies and the topic why the Europeans came to the Caribbean. So without further ado, let us go right into our lesson. Now here's a world map showing the 7 continents of the world. And the 7 continents of the world are North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, Antarctica. And if we should rank these continents, we can say that Asia is the largest continent of the world. Africa is the second, North America is the third, South America is the fourth, Antarctica is the fifth, Europe is the sixth, and Australia is the seventh. All right. So now we know that the largest continent of the world is Asia. All right. Now, who are the Europeans? Now, the major Europeans that came to the Caribbean are the British, the Spanish, otherwise known as the Spaniards, the French, the Dutch, and the Portuguese. So these are the major Europeans that came to the Caribbean. All right. Now, where did the Europeans originated from? In other words, where did the Europeans come from? So here again are the major Europeans that came to the Caribbean, which are the Spanish, otherwise known as the Spaniards, British, French, Dutch, and the Portuguese. And here are the countries that the major Europeans originated from. All right. So the Spanish originated from Spain. The British originated from the country England. French originated from France. The Dutch originated from Netherlands. And the Portuguese originated from Portugal. Now, why the Europeans came? Now, the migration of the Europeans to the Caribbean began in the 15th century. How many students can tell me how many years make a century? And if you say 100 years, then you are indeed correct. So 100 years make a century, 50 years make half century, and 25 years make quarter of a century. All right. So if you are living in the year 2021, how many students can tell me which century we are living in? All right, let us find out. So we are living in the year 2021, and we want to find out which century rather, we are living in. So in order to find out this, we have to eliminate the 2 last digits. All right, and the 2 last digits are 2 and 1. So let us eliminate the 2 last digits now. All right, so now we have 20. So in order for us to know the century we are living in, we just add 1 to the 0. All right, So when we add 1 to the 0, we have now 21. All right? Because we replace the 0 with 1. So we add 1 to the 0. So now the number becomes 21. All right? So now we are living in the 21st century. All right? We are living in the 21st century. All right, beautiful. All right, we are living in the 21st century. Now, for example, another example, we know that Christopher Columbus came to the Caribbean on his first voyage in the year 1492. So, in the year 1492, which bright student can tell me uh, which century Christopher Columbus came in? All right, so we have to first remove or eliminate the two last digits. All right, so let us eliminate the two last digits. All right, so here we have the number 14. So all we have to do is to add 1 to the 4. And if we add 1 to the 4, we now get the number or the new number 15. All right, because 4 plus 1 is equal to 5. So now we have a new number which is 15. So Columbus came in the 15th century. All right, 15th century. Good. So now we know how to find the century we are living in. All right. Great. All right. So the migration of the Europeans to the Caribbean began in the 15th century. Now in the 15th century, some of the most valuable resources in the world were spices and precious metals. Now, some of these spices are nutmeg, which we all know, right? Pimento, cloves, cinnamon, ginger, and peppercorns. And some of these precious metals are gold and silver, right? So in the 15th century, some of the most valuable resources in the world were spices and precious metals. Now, most of the spices used by the Europeans came from countries in the East, such as India and China. Now, the Europeans wanted to find new routes to these countries, to control the spice trade because the old overland routes had become more dangerous. Now, as we said earlier, that most of the spices used by the Europeans came from countries in the East, such as India and China. Now, how many students can tell me which continent India and China is located in? Now, if you say that India and China is located in the continent of Asia, you are indeed correct. So, India and China is located in Asia. And Asia, we say that it's the largest continent of the world, right? So, can you tell me if Asia is located in the east or west or north or south? All right, so Asia is located in the east. All right, so here's a nice compass. So we have north, we're showing the cardinal points. We have north, we have east, we have south, and we have west. So we see that Asia is located in the east. All right. So therefore, Asia is located in the east, and the Caribbean is located in the west. All right. So the Caribbean, which is here, is located in the west, as we see on the compass, and the cardinal point showing the north, east, south, and west. We see that the Caribbean is located in the west, and Asia is located in the east. All right. So let me show you again. All right, beautiful. So India and China are found in the, let me go back. India and China are found in Asia, as we just mentioned, and it's the largest continent, right, of the world. And Asia is located in the east, and that's where Christopher Columbus wanted to reach, the continent of Asia. However, he thought that there was a way to the east by sailing to the west, and was never convinced that the island he had reached were not off some part of the Asian mainland. So that's how Christopher Columbus and his men ended up in the Caribbean by sailing west and landed on the island he called San Salvador, which is named today the Bahamas Island. So when he saw the indigenous people of the Caribbean, which are the Taínos or the Arawaks people, he called them Indians because they looked like Indians. So he named the place West Indies. All right. All right. So we mentioned earlier about the spices, and there are many spices found in India, and some are not found anywhere else. All right. So we mentioned earlier about the spices, where most of the spices, right here, where most of the spices used by the Europeans came from countries in the east, such as India and China. And these are examples of the spices. All right. So first one we have the, how many of you can identify the first spice right here? All right. If you say nutmeg, you are indeed correct. What about this one, the second one, where the cursor is pointing? This one is the pimento. All right. Beautiful. You are indeed correct. What about the third one, which is so easy? All right, if you say the ginger, you are indeed correct. What about the fourth one? Great. This one is the cloves. Yes. What about the sixth one? Sorry, the fifth one, which is this one. Cinnamon. Beautiful. What about the last one, which is this one? So this one is the peppercorn. All right. So we named all the spices. So let me go again. The nutmeg, the pimento, the ginger, the cloves, the cinnamon, and the peppercorns. All right. And can you tell me what these spices use for, or what they can be used for? All right. Let us start with the nutmeg. So the nutmeg can be used to bake. Yes, it can use to bake. It can use to, and it can add rather to hot chocolate tea. It can add to eggnog, coffee, and also our wonderful porridge. All right. So the pimento, which is this one, can be used in jerk seasoning, Easter spice bun, and also our porridge. All right. Yes. So I know that mommy and daddy, uncle, sister, whoever you live with, use these spices at home. All right. So the cloves, which is this one, is it can be used as flavoring. All right. It can be used as flavoring. Am I recording? Yes, it can be used as flavoring. For example, it can add flavor to your meat when you season up your chicken or your pork. your ham, etc., etc. All right. It can be used to give your meats flavor. All right. It also used in toothpaste. Yes, the cloves also used in toothpaste, soap, perfumes, etc. So it have many benefits. All right. What about the cinnamon? So the cinnamon can be used to make cinnamon roll that we love. Yay! Yes, man. It can be used to make cinnamon roll that we buy at the supermarket or the shop. All right. It can use to make porridge as well. Yes, when we boil our cornmeal porridge, man, and we add our seasoning and our spices, right? Like our um, uh, cinnamon to our porridge. It gives flavor to the porridge, and it makes the porridge nice. In our Jamaican language, noise. All right, it makes the porridge nice. All right, so it can also cinnamon can also uh, be added to our sweet potato pie. How many of you know sweet potato pie? All right, research it. So it can be added to our sweet potato pie. All right, what about ginger? Mhm. So ginger can be used to make tea. Yes, man, we know that. Ginger can be used to make tea, help with migraine headache. Yes, lowering, I should say, hypertension. All right. So it lowers hypertension. All right, and aid with digestion. All right. So what about peppercorn? Peppercorn can be added. Peppercorn can add flavor rather uh, to your meat, to your fish, to your vegetables, to your salad dressing, to your soup, and also to your pasta. Yes, so peppercorn can add flavor to your meat, fish, vegetables, salad dressing, soup, uh, and also your pasta. So these spices are very beneficial. All right, so that's why the Europeans wanted these spices, and we know that back then they never had uh, refrigerator, so they use these spices to put on the meats to preserve the meats from spoiling. All right, so it's not like our time in the 21st century that we are living in. We have our refrigerator that we can put our fish, our pork, our uh, ham, our chicken back, our chicken foot, you name them, and it won't spoil, right? Because the fridge preserve it. But in those days, in 1492, they don't have fridge back then, or refrigerator, I should say, back then. So therefore, they have to use these spices to preserve their meats. All right. So that's why these spices are in demand in those times. All right. Great. So here is so let me read the topic first. The first Europeans that came, and we know that the first Europeans that came are the Spanish. All right, or the Spaniards. Now, here's a picture of the great Italian navigator Christopher Columbus, and we know that a navigator is a person that explores the sea. All right. So the great Italian navigator Christopher Columbus and his troops or men were the first Europeans that came to the Caribbean. All right. Am I still recording? Let me check. Yes, I am. So yes, we know that the great Italian navigator Christopher Columbus and his men were the first Europeans that came to the Caribbean. So let us read. The Spaniards were the first Europeans to arrive in the Caribbean in the year 1492, And Christopher Columbus uh, led an expedition. What do you mean by expedition? That's a big word. Christopher Columbus led an expedition. Expedition means a journey undertaken by a group of people with a particular purpose. All right, so it means a journey. So Christopher Columbus led an expedition paid by King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain. All right. So what was Columbus looking for? So he was looking for gold and to find other routes to countries in the east uh, to engage in the spice trade, as we mentioned earlier. All right. So these other countries were India and China. All right. So Christopher Columbus also wanted to convert the people he found to Christianity. Yes, he also wanted to convert the people he found to Christianity. And convert means change, all right? So he also wanted to change the people. In other words, he wanted to change the people he found to Christianity, all right? Now, Columbus' second voyage in 1494. And here's a beautiful map that is illustrated here. And the arrow shows are pointing on Discovery Bay. And we know that Discovery Bay is in the parish of which parish? I should ask. So Discovery Bay is in which parish, students? All right, so Discovery Bay is in the parish of St. Anne. Beautiful. If you say St. Anne, you are indeed correct. Now, on Christopher Columbus' second voyage in 1494, Columbus arrived in Jamaica and landed at a place called Discovery Bay. And we say that Discovery Bay is in the parish of St. Anne. Now, Columbus made 4 voyages to the Caribbean. Some of the Spanish people who had come with Columbus stayed behind on the islands to set up large farms called plantation, and we're going to look on that word throughout the lesson. Plantation. All right. Now, Christopher Columbus made 4 transatlantic uh, voyages. And what does the word transatlantic means? It means crossing the Atlantic Ocean. All right, that's what it means. Crossing the Atlantic Oceans. And that's what Christopher Columbus did. He crossed the Atlantic Oceans. All right, so on his first voyage, he traveled in the year 1492 to 1493. On his second voyage, he sailed in the year 1493 to 1496. And on his third voyage, he sailed in the year 1498 to the 1500. All right. And his last and fourth voyage, he sailed in the year 1502. All right. So he traveled primarily, this is Christopher Columbus now, he traveled primarily to the Caribbean, including the Bahamas, Cuba, Santo Domingo, and Jamaica. And his later 2 voyages traveled to the coast of Eastern and Central America and Northern South America. All right. Spanish colonization in the Caribbean. Now we are looking at a diagram here with 3 ships. And these 3 ships are the ships that Christopher Columbus and his men took sail in, and they are the Pinta, Nina, and Santa Maria. All right. So when the Spanish settled in the island of Jamaica and other islands, they took them over in the name of the Queen of Spain. And we know the name of the Queen of Spain was Queen Isabella. All right. So this taking over control is called colonization. Big word, right? So this taking over control is called colonization. In other words, the Spanish take over the governance of the island. All right, so they take control. So only the Europeans could own lands, vote, and take decisions about the running of the country. And a governor now was placed on the island to rule the country. Further on, we are going to learn about the British. That's another group of Europeans that colonized Jamaica. All right. And at one point, we were ruled under the British government. Did you know that? Yes. However, in 1962, Jamaica gained independence and we became now an independent nation. So we are no longer ruled under the British government, all right? So in other words, we can say we are no longer colonized by the British. All right? Now we continue with our Spanish colonization in the Caribbean. All right? Continue with the Spanish colonization in the Caribbean. So the Spaniards introduced new crops and animals. And some of these crops are orange, cane, banana. Some of the animals are cows, etc. All right? Large farms or plantations of sugarcane were set up. These farms required a large workforce. That's how large these sugar plantations were. All right, so it needed a lot of workers. All right, so the Spanish or the Spaniards enslaved the Tainos to work on the plantations, forcing them to work hard for long hours. Can you imagine? They don't just work hard, but they force them to work hard for long hours. So many of them died under the harsh working condition, mistreatment, torture, and from diseases such as cholera, smallpox, and measles. And these diseases were brought by the Europeans. So the Europeans exposed the Tainos or the Arawaks people to these diseases. All right? And they died. Well, most of them died, I should say. Because it says many of them died under the harsh working condition. So most of them died from the harsh working condition and the mistreatment and the torture and the disease that the Europeans exposed them to. All right. So the Spanish did not see the Tainos as human beings. Look at the inhumane condition now. So the Spanish did not see the Tainos as human beings and sometimes killed them for sport. Can you imagine? Do you want to be a part of that sport? No, no. We don't want to be a part of that sport. So we have to appreciate our ancestors and the struggle and the harsh life that they've been through. All right? So let us continue. So we continue with the Spanish colonization. All right, I'm still recording. Good. So over time, the Taínos population was almost wiped out in Jamaica and reduced to a small number in the Caribbean as a whole. So as we just mentioned about the European exposes them to expose them to uh, the the diseases, the different diseases, just as the such as the chicken. Let me go back there. Such as the cholera, the smallpox, and the measles that the Europeans exposed them to. As a result of that, the Taínos population was almost wiped out in Jamaica and reduced the small number in the Caribbean as a whole. Now, in 1542, the Spanish government became aware of the destruction of the indigenous people. And the Spanish government include the King of Spain, that's King Ferdinand, and Queen Isabella. All right, so in 1542, the Spanish government became aware of the destruction of the indigenous people, and these indigenous people are the Tainos or the Arawaks people. and they ordered Europeans to stop forcing the Americans to work. First, you hear that word? All right. So the Americans, it simple means American Indians. They just join the word together and call it Americans. All right. Yes. So this meant the Spanish needed other people as workers. So guess what they did? They began to bring in enslaved Africans. All right. They started to bring in enslaved Africans now to replace the Taínos population that was almost wiped out. All right. So we continue with the Spanish colonization. Am I still recording? Yes. The Spanish also wanted to find gold and they mined all they could get from Cuba, Hispaniola, and some Caribbean mainland countries. Now, news of Spain's wealth spread throughout Europe. Other countries tried to take some Spanish lands, so other European countries became jealous now. So it was hard for the Spaniards to protect their ships and colonies from attack because the area was large and made up of many small islands. Now, when the British saw how successful the Dutch were in sharing the Spanish wealth, guess what they did? They wanted some themselves. So they came to settle in the Caribbean as well. So we're going to look at British colonization. So the British fought the Spanish and captured some of their islands. In the year 1655, the British chased the Spanish from Jamaica and occupied the land in the name of the Queen of England, not the Queen of Spain now, but the Queen of England. So the British occupation of lands in the Caribbean was the beginning of British colonization in the Caribbean. Now the British in Jamaica. When the British took control of Jamaica, they found a few rundown sugar estates. They wanted to turn Jamaica into a giant sugar factory. They offered 12 acres, which is equivalent to 30 acres of land, to any British man who was willing to settle on the island. So many took up the offer, and soon all the fertile plains were covered with sugarcane plantations owned by the British. Now, Europeans' control of the Caribbean. Now, the Dutch, British, and French often fought with each other to own the lands of the Caribbean, and some of these territories changed ownership several times. For example, Saint Kitts in the Lesser Antilles changed ownership from Spanish to French to British, and at one time the British and the French both settled on the island. Now, the Caribs, which are the Kalinagos people, living there were killed by the British and French, and the survivors were driven off the island. Now, let us look at the Africans. Now, the enslavement of Africans in the Caribbean was at first the result of the Spanish need to replace the enslaved Tainos as the Tainos population was nearly wiped out. And why did the Taínos population nearly wipe out? It's because of the Spanish exposing the Taínos people uh, to various diseases such as smallpox, cholera, and you name them. They were all mentioned earlier in the lesson, all right? And the harsh treatment, the mistreatment and the torture, and the hard and long hours that they have to work. So these are the result or uh, the reason why the Taínos population was almost or nearly wiped out. So therefore, the Spanish needed workers to replace the Taínos on the sugar plantation. So they wanted the Africans. All right. So let me read this part again. That says the enslavement of Africans in the Caribbean was at first the result of the Spanish need to replace the enslaved Taínos, as the Taínos population was nearly wiped out. All right, am I recording? Yes. So where did the enslaved Africans come from? So the Africans were brought mostly from countries along the west coast of Africa and from Central Africa. They came from different tribes such as Mandingos, Ashanti, Fanti, Yoruba, Igbo, Akan, and Yu. Alright? So trading of humans, as goods was successful business between Europeans and African traders in the region. So in other words, I have a Superman toy and you have a Batman toy. I want your Batman, so I'm gonna trade my Superman for your Batman. So you give me your Batman, I give you my Superman. So something similar like that. All right. So trading or exchanging of humans as goods was successful business between Europeans and Africans traders in the region. All right. So many African chiefs supplied prisoners or captured Africans from other tribes to African and European traders. Now the Europeans then transported the Africans and sold them, to the European plantation owners in the Caribbean and Americas. All right, and here's a beautiful diagram here. All right, so we're going to look at countries the enslaved Africans come from, and the enslaved Africans come from countries such as Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, Republic of Benin. All right, and some of the tribes they came out of came from uh, are the Akan, Ashanti, Yu, Fanti, Igbo, Mandingos, or Mandinka, and Yoruba. All right. So Ghana, so the enslaved Africans that come from Ghana come from the tribe Akan, Ashanti, Yu, Fanti. So the enslaved Africans from Nigeria now uh, came out of the tribe or come from the tribe Igbo, and the enslaved Africans from Senegal come from the tribe of Mandingos or Mandinka, and the enslaved Africans from Republic of Benin comes out of the tribe or come from the tribe of Yoruba. All right. So I want you to pay attention as they are important to your learning. All right. Now I want you to look on the table, and I want you to pay attention to the countries, the colonizers, and the language. All right. So this is a beautiful table that illustrates the Caribbean countries, the nation that colonized each, and the official languages. Am I recording? Yes, I am. All right. So some of these countries are Barbados, Bonaire, Cuba, Guadeloupe, Guyana, Haiti, Honduras, Jamaica, Trinidad, and Tobago. Now, some of the colonizers now who colonized these countries are the England rather, and England colonized. Barbados was colonized by England, and the language they speak is English. Alan was colonized. Bonaire, I should say. So Bonaire is colonized by Holland, all right, and the language they speak is Dutch. Cuba was colonized by Spain, and the language they speak is Spanish. Guadeloupe was colonized by France, and the language they speak is French. Guyana was colonized by England, and the language they speak is English. Haiti was colonized by France, and the language they speak is French. Honduras was colonized by Spain, and the language they speak is Spanish. Jamaica was colonized by Spain, followed by England, and the language they speak is English. Trinidad and Tobago was colonized by Spain, followed by England, and the language they speak is English. So please pay attention to this table, as it is important, significant, and vital to your learning. All right. Now we're going to look at slavery in Jamaica. Look if I'm recording. All right, beautiful. So we want to look at slavery in Jamaica, and here's a beautiful image showing captured African slaves walking to the coast in West Africa. So this is the way uh, they were uh, traveled or traveling. This is how they traveled rather to the west coast of Africa. So this is how the captured Africans had to walk to the coast. All right. So Spaniards needed more workers on the sugar plantation. So we all know that the first people enslaved in Jamaica were the Taínos. All right. So when most of the Taínos had been wiped out and the Spaniards needed more workers, they turned to Africa. All right. So many Africans were captured and transported on large ships to the Caribbean. So in Jamaica, when the British invaded in 1655, the enslaved Africans who had worked for the Spanish ran away to the mountains and set up what became maroon settlements. All right. So the British chased them but could not recapture them. So guess what? The British needed a great number of workers now to work on the sugar plantations. And so they brought in thousands more enslaved Africans. So we want to look on the triangular trade, and here is a beautiful diagram that illustrates the triangular trade. All right. So we want to first look on the key. The green arrow shows the enslaved Africans, the blue arrow shows the West Indian products, the red arrow shows European made goods. So we see the green arrow which shows the enslaved Africans, the blue arrow shows the West Indian products such as rum, molasses, cotton, sugar, tobacco, and the red arrow shows the man-made goods, sorry, the European made goods such as uh, metal goods such as metal bars, tools, etc., guns, ammunition, trinkets, liquors, textiles, and mirrors. All right. So what is the triangular trade? We want to find out what is the triangular trade. All right. So the triangular trade have to do with slave trade have to do with the slave trade period where ships traveled between Europe, Africa, and the Caribbean. All right, let me say that again. So the triangular trade have to do with slave trade period, have to do with the slave trade period where uh, ships traveled between Europe here, Africa, and the Caribbean. All right. So the Europeans traveled from Europe ports such as Liverpool, Bristol, Amsterdam in Great Britain with Europeans made goods such as uh, metal bars, tools, etc., guns, ammunition, trinkets, liquors, textiles, mirrors. So they traveled. So the European travels from the European ports of Liverpool, Bristol, Amsterdam in Great Britain with European made goods, metal goods such as metal bars, tools, guns, ammunition, trinkets, liquors, textile, mirrors. So we want to find out when they travel with these goods, where did they take them? All right, so they take them. So these goods were taken rather to ports such as Freetown. All right, Freetown, Accra, Lagos, and Old Calabar on the west coast of Africa. So now we know where our enslaved Africans came from. They came from West Africa. All right, they came from West Africa. Here is West Africa. All right, all right. So let me try to go over that. to make sure that you understand. All right, I want to make sure that you understand. So the Europeans traveled from Europe ports such as Liverpool, Bristol, Amsterdam in Great Britain with European made goods, and these are the European made goods. We have the metal goods such as metal bars, tools, etc., guns, ammunition, trinkets, liquors, textiles, mirrors. And they take these goods uh, to, to ports such as Freetown. So these are the ports. So they take these goods to ports such as Freetown, Accra, Lagos, Old Calabar. All right, on the west coast of Africa. All right. So as I said earlier, we know where our enslaved Africans came from. They came from West Africa. All right. So we want to look at the Middle Passage now. So we want to look on the Middle Passage. So what is the Middle Passage? We want to know what is the Middle Passage. So the journey from Africa to the Caribbean region was called Middle Passage. Am I recording? Yes. So the journey from Africa to the Caribbean region was called the Middle Passage. All right. The journey from Africa to the Caribbean region was called the Middle Passage. Let me go back to the diagram. So the journey from Africa, here, Africa to the Caribbean, which is here, is called the Middle Passage. All right. So the journey from Africa to the Caribbean were called the Middle Passage or called the Middle Passage. All right. So Africans were packed in very small spaces on the ships for many months. And here is an example of that. So this image illustrates that where the Africans were packed in small spaces on ships for many months. So you can imagine the inhumane condition they were living in. So they weren't comfortable. So you and I know that they weren't comfortable. All right. And they were treated so harshly. So we know that these Africans lived in very inhumane condition. And many people became sick on the journey. So guess what? Some died. All right. Some starved themselves to death or jumped overboard. Some were punished harshly or even thrown overboard. And here's an image showing how uh, they were thrown overboard. All right. They were punished and thrown overboard into the sea. So you see the harsh condition, or I should say the inhumane condition that these Africans went through. Yes. So let us go back to the diagram. All right. So we say that the Middle Passage is the journey from Africa to the Caribbean. All right. Am I recording? All right. Great. So let us move on to this part. So it says, when traders arrived in the Caribbean, the shipments of Africans were advertised. So the Africans were placed on platforms to examine by prospective owners. Mhm. So when the traders sold the Africans, they used the money to buy West Indian products such as sugar, and here's an example of sugar, rum, molasses, foods, and tobacco. And you may see tobacco in what they call Matterhorn and Craven A. So they smoke this tobacco, and this is not healthy. Smoking is unhealthy. It can cause cancer. and result in death. So therefore, you should not smoke. All right. So this is an example of the tobacco. All right. So let's go back to the diagram. So, before I go back to the diagram, let me read back this part. When traders sold the Africans, they used the money to buy West Indian products such as rum, molasses. Here's a diagram. Rum, molasses, cotton, sugar, and tobacco. All right. So in Montego Bay, Jamaica, there was a thriving trading of lard. There was a thriving trading of lard that was produced from the fat of wild pigs. All right, and here's an example of the lard uh, that was produced from the fat of wild pigs. Here is it, right here. Yes. So pimento and pimento sticks were also brought. These were taken back to ports in Europe, such as Lisbon in Portugal, Liverpool and Bristol in Britain, and Nantes in France to be sold. All right. So here are the goods that was uh, bring back to ports in Europe, such as Lisbon in Portugal, Liverpool and Bristol in Britain, and Nantes in France. So these are the goods that was bring back to be sold. All right, these are the goods that was brought back to Europe ports to be sold. All right, that's it for the triangular trade. So we look at the triangular trade, we look at the middle passage. All right, and we look at the goods that were bring back to Europe and so forth. So I hope you um, have digest this, all right, because you will be tested on it. All right. So we want to show you an example of how uh, I hope you can see. Hope you can see because it's a bit foggy. So I hope you can see. So I wanted to show you. I want to show you an example how the slaves were sold. All right. Am I recording? Yes. So I want to show you an example of how the slaves were sold. So in the diagram here, or in the picture here, we have the European trader right here. So we have the trader, the European trader here. We have buyer one and we have buyer two. So the European trader would say, we have Ashanti and Mandingo men today, men of great strength and vigor, in great demand to make your farm grow. So one of the European buyer would say, what is the going price today? So the European trader would say 57 pounds sterling per African man. And buyer one would reply and say, I need 5 Ashanti men with strong muscles, strong teeth, and sturdy build, and I will pay 55 pounds sterling for each. Now buyer two will offer a better price. So buyer two would say, I need 2 Ashanti men and I will pay 57 pounds sterling for the very best young and strong muscular men with strong teeth. Now the European trader would reply and say, here, examine my most priced goods, 57 pounds sterling each. So buyer two would reply and say, I will pay 57 pounds sterling each for these two strong men. So the European trader would say, take them. Congratulations. So this is how the slaves were sold back then. All right. Imagine you as a slave on the sugar plantation. Imagine you as a slave being sold to buyers. How do you feel? Do you want to live? Would you like to live in those era? No, I don't believe I want to live in those era. So that means we must appreciate our ancestors and where they are coming from and the harshness and the struggles that they've been through. All right, we must appreciate it. We should never forget it. All right, and we should know our history. All right, so let us soak this in. I know it's a lot of information, so let us soak these information in, students, and stay tuned for the next teaching and learning video. But before we go off, let us summarize. Let us do a little summary of the Europeans coming here, or coming to the Caribbean rather. So the Europeans wanted, so this is a summary, a little short summary of the Europeans coming to the Caribbean. All right. So the first one is that am I recording? So the Europeans wanted a shipping way to India, China, and Japan. All right. So the Europeans wanted a shipping way to India, China, and Japan. So the European countries wanted to have land in Asia. They wanted to have land in Asia. The land passage to Asia passing through the Middle East. People wanted fine silk rather, from Japan and China. Uh, the three G's, which is God, glory, and gold. So they came for uh, the three G's: God, glory, and gold. What does that mean? God, glory, and gold. So the God stands for the desire to spread and expand Christianity. The glory would stands for greater power and larger empire. And finally, the gold stands for the attainment of gold, silver, and other precious stones for greater wealth. All right, so that's just basically a short summary of why the Europeans came. All right, so came to the Caribbean rather. So have yourselves a wonderful day and stay tuned for the next teaching and learning exercise.